Could I start the session, sir?
I am ready, ma'am, whenever you say that quorum is complete.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Now I welcome our expert. Tesmul Haq has been associated with the Settle USA headquartered Digital Control Incorporated DCI for the past 15 years. He was instrumental in setting up the company's first office in India 2006 and grew into the role of Director Asia Pacific, managing entire region with offices in Delhi, Shanghai and Manila. He is a mechanical engineer from Aligarh Muslim University with an MBA from Indian School of Business ISB Hyderabad. He has also completed a leadership program for senior executive at INSEAD, Singapore and France. He is a multicultural global strategy and business leader, enjoys developing new markets and nurturing old ones. Inception of Software Development Center in India as new source of talent and competitive advantage for the company provided much needed impetus to achievement of organizational aspirations. Now he also leads the offshore software development team in India and overseas. For her, setting up DCI's Indian operational from scratch in 2006 was an enthralling experience, but not without challenges. Building a team, expanding the reseller work network, creating awareness about the then nascent SDD technology in telecom was not easy. There were inefficiencies in operations, paucity of machines and crew, but he took it in his stride and aggressively promoted SDD technology, training the crew and explaining the technology viability and profit potential. Today, there is hardly any telecom fiber project that is undertaken without SDD technology. Welcome to you, sir. Over to you. Please take the session, sir.
Thank you for the introduction. Thanks, everybody. And I hope that you all will have a little bit of uh, insight into what's needed by the fresh graduates when they come out of an engineering college. And I have been associated with the construction industry for about 25 years now. And in my 25 years of experience, I have realized that one of the main things which engineers lack is any understanding of contract execution. The idea here is not to make the engineers expert in contract drafting or expert in negotiation or managing the contracts. That's something which is done by the engineers. But at the end of the day, the engineers become frontline people responsible for fulfilling a contract which their organization has signed. And this session is to explain to you all that how and what kind of curriculum can be included even in half a credit to a full credit course, which will make the young engineers much more employable. Okay. Uh, any specific need from anybody or any, anything you want me to cover specifically? Okay. I think I have no questions here, and this means that the topic is kind of new for the people, but that's fine. I'll try to cover as much as possible. First of all, what is contract? At the core of it, contract is exchange of promise between two or more parties, which can be enforced by court of law. Promise of delivery of product or services, promise of taking certain action, and promise of refraining from certain action, all these are part of the contract. So here I want to emphasize that there are certain cases where companies are paid for not doing a specific things. Okay. Uh, as well as for doing things. So that's a contract, and we will be talking more about it. So what happens? Why engineers and contract management? Is it only related to construction industry? Is it related to the service industry? What is it related to? What is it related to? It's all related to clients and supplier. First of all, anywhere our fresh graduates go to work, either in design and consultancy, in project management, in software development, in sales and services, in construction project, in procurement, anywhere they go, they have to deal with the contract. Rarely ever people are working for our in-house projects, and those in-house projects also mean that they are going to be serving to internal stakeholders, which is more of a managing a promise again. Just that promise is not legally legal in nature, but promise is a promise to a colleague of ours. Another thing I want to point out is that with the industry 4.0 and a gig economy going on, more and more firms are specializing to their core, and more processes are done outside the organization. In fact, in our 80s and 90s, there was a huge push for something called vertical integration, whereas companies were trying to integrate all the functions inside their own their own organization. That push has now gone into something entirely different, where companies are defining their core and saying that anything outside the core, I am happy that somebody else takes care of it and some other specialist works on it. Okay. So that's what I call firms are specializing to their core. More and more processes are done outside the organization. Coming back now that I have given an introduction to why contracts are needed, let's talk about what our young engineers need to know. For sure, they don't have the required experience, the required position to get into, let's say, drafting of contract or get into negotiating a contract. Okay, but because they are at the front lines of delivery, they need to read a contract, they need to manage a contract, they need to enforce a contract. Either as a young engineer, you are either working to deliver some contract, or you are working to get the work done from the other party. And both these cases required reading of a contract which has been drafted typically by the procurement department, and the legal department has negotiated it, and the legal, finance and procurement has negotiated it. But at the end of the day, as a frontline executioner or frontline monitoring of the project, our young engineers are supposed to enforce those contracts. So I'll be covering each of these areas one by one. Before I dwell deep into it, I hope everybody has got an introduction to the subject. And if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to field it right away. And I want to remind everybody that this whole session will be a lot more productive if we have it interactive rather than having it just one-sided, me talking about what is needed by the young engineers. So let's talk about stages of contract management. And stages of contract management are typically procurement, execution, and contract closure. I understand that in most of the cases, our engineers are not involved in procurement stage of the contract. But as a young engineer, they are definitely involved in execution as well as the contract closure. So we'll be talking more about execution and contract closures than the procurement per se. Procurement. Of course, there is a client side of the procurement and there is a supplier side of the procurement. The one who is requesting for the service and paying money, and the one who is giving the services and taking money. Okay. So at the procurement stage, defining deliverables, request for the proposal, technical selection criteria, allocation of responsibility, defining and monitoring mechanism, risk mitigation and allocation, commercial selection criteria, defining governance and responsibility, allocation of a contract, and dispute resolutions are some of the areas which are covered during the from the client side. From the supplier side, the documents they need to create is create a marketing material so as the inquiry comes to them. They need to generate the lead, and for that they need to build the relationship and subscribe to the various professional uh, websites as well as the professional organizations from where they get the qualified lead. They need to prepare a technical qualification document on which they are qualified. Then there is a estimate and resource estimation of the resource which they need to do, because that's how they are able to give the quotation for the money needed to execute a contract. They of course need to review the contract terms. Is there some things in there which they will not be able to fulfill, or is there something in there which is going to cost them a lot more than the money they are getting? Assessment of risk and reward, and commercial quotations. Now this is one area where I will say young engineers are typically not involved, and the experienced people are the one who get into these things. Senior people are the one who get into, from the client side as well as from the supplier side. Here experience has got is needed to execute that. A lot of these people will be engineers plus management degree holders. Some of them will be engineers with the substantial experience. Some of them might even be a legal or account professionals who are involved in the procurement process. Then comes execution management. And execution management is very, very interesting. Before I go forward, is there any questions on the client or supplier side? If questions are not coming, I will have to resort to what I call name calling, which is not pleasant for anybody. I might start asking people to talk about it, because this lecture cannot go one-sided. So, Mr. Gautam Bose, you have any inputs?
So the topic is new to us, sir. So we don't have any questions at present, sir. Management topic.
This topic is new to you all, so you
Yes.
have no questions per se.
Yes.
Okay. But I hope you are understanding the importance of the contract management for the young engineers.
Yes, sir.
Of course, I'm not going to get into the details of the contract management nitty gritty. The idea here is to sensitize the college management about the need for the young engineers to understand the contract delivery. Okay. So that's what I will focus on. So when it comes to execution and management of the contract, first of all, one needs to understand that they are on which side of the equation. One is the delivery side of the equation, the other one is on the delivery assessment side of the equation. So from a delivery side, if you are from a delivery side of the equations, it's very, very important in fact, for both the sides, it is very, very important to understand what is the scope of the contract. Okay. The scope of contract is something without which nothing works. We need to know what we need to deliver or what we need to check. But that's the bare basic. The next thing one need to understand, especially as an engineer, is what are the dependencies. So if you are a software developer for the back end, your work cannot be seen by the client unless otherwise the front end is completed. Or if you are a construction contractor and you want to construct a road, you cannot construct the road unless otherwise there is a right of way clearance given, or the construction machinery arrive on a job site. So the dependencies behind what is needed to complete a contract is also very, very important. Then of course the documentation, what contract says. This is especially important for the people who are executing the contract. A lot of time the engineers are supposed to get their daily work done report certified, or the milestone certified, that this milestone needs to be certified before the payment can be made. And if those certifications are not done in the timely manner, we will not be able to fulfill a contract. If we are not able to fulfill a contract, then we are not able to get paid. And that's the worst thing. So dependencies are definitely need to be identified. Scope needs to be identified. Then resource needed to do the job needs to be identified. What all am I going to need to complete the contract or contractual obligations? Because young engineers, when they are sent on a job site, at many of the time they are not being equipped with the resources needed to complete the front end job, and those resources become a constraint. What are the expectations? What are the approval and certifications? If there is a change in contract, how they are supposed to execute that change? Are they supposed to say no? Are they supposed to get the extra work certified from the client? Are they supposed to ask for upfront advance before starting a new work? What is the course of action which one is expected to do when there is a change in contract, either in positive direction or in negative direction? Okay. Then comes relationship. The relationships again are very, very important, between the two companies to execute any contract successfully. And these relationships are managed at the higher levels. But even at the junior levels, these relationships need to be cultivated to ensure the smooth execution of a contract. So from my execution management perspective, are there any questions?
Sir, what do you mean by certifications, sir, here? Certifications.
Okay, so what happens is that a lot of time contracts specify that to get this contract completed, after you complete the work, a third party has to certify that your work is completed satisfactorily. And that third party gives a certification. That third party can be a third party inspection services, in some cases, even the statutory bodies. Is it clear
Okay, sir.
now?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good. Is there any other questions? Then comes identifying the area of a dispute. Identifying the area of a dispute is very, very important. A smell of a mismatch of expectations come really, really early. And that's the time when it can be resolved amicably. That's the time the corrective measures can be taken. And if that mismatched expectations are ignored, then later on it becomes a big point of contention, and that's when we start getting into the disputes and arbitrations and all kind of problems, and then the blame game also starts. Mismatch of expectation can be unwillingness to execute the work, unwillingness to certify the work, request for additional work beyond contract. These are just the beginning where you start seeing that this contract is getting into a trouble. And if our engineers are sensitized and they can report it to their higher ups, who are typically not on the job side, unfortunately, they will be able to take care of these mismatched expectations much, much better. Okay. Then comes project progress timeline, on the ground expectation status. Now, the job site for a construction is not available, or the software for the execution of the program is not available. How will you complete your work? You are not supposed to sit idle saying that, I don't have a front, so I can't work. You are supposed to make noise that you are not able to work. Otherwise, just before the end date, that resource or that problem will be solved, and then you will be asked why you cannot deliver the project in time. A lot of time there is a false reporting from a project. Either it's a software development project or a real life execution of the project. Whereas red lights are masquerading as a green lights, what you are saying is, oh yeah, we will catch up. We will get to complete it before the end of the day. This is too early to say that we are going to miss the timelines. But most of the problems in contract start because there is an expectation mismatch. When you keep saying things are all right, everybody assumes things are all right. And when things are not delivered, everyone is shocked. Versus when you keep saying that, these are the challenges you are facing, and it might end up slipping this, you might end up slipping this contract, then you are talking about, you are setting the expectations right. So unrealistic expectation of progress as well as the catch up is something which young engineers need to be sensitized to avoid it at every cost. Because honestly, in any project, the rule is that first 25% of the time you should have completed 25% of the work, Next 25% of the time, you should have completed 40% of the work plus 25 you have done before. So by the time you end 50% of the timeline, you should be on 65% of your work, because there are always knickknacks which come and derail your project towards the end of the project rather than towards the beginning of the project. So startup takes time. So first 25% of the project definitely takes 25% of the time. Next 25% of the project should take less than 20% of the time to complete, so as when you come towards the end, you have some cushion to complete the work. Am I making sense, sir? Early warnings. Mitigation the disputes early. So if there are some signs of a dispute, we need to mitigate that. Someone was saying something? Any questions? Yeah.
Sir, am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Sir,
Dr. Abdul.
my question is, if they have work in some contract, so they just want to cancel at any point of time, whether it is possible, they will go by mutual way.
See, first of all, no work can be cancelled arbitrarily in one side. Okay. You are always having a mechanism to make sure that once the contract is signed, the obligations are known to each other. Okay. And those obligations ensure that you cannot terminate a contract one-sided. There are always penalty clause for both the sides. If the client wants to cancel the contract in advance, they have to pay a mobilization charges and a compensation to a contractor. If in case the contractor wants to cancel the contract in the middle, contractor has to pay penalty to the client. In fact, many of the government contracts nowadays have a term saying that in case you have taken a contract and you are not able to complete it, we will get it done by the third party, and whatever difference in rate is there, you have to pay it. Mr. Contractor has to pay that. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So then comes mitigating disputes early. What it means by mitigating disputes early is you have to start informing everybody about the scope creep or scope not covered in the contract. If some of your resources are idle, either the contractor's resource or the client resource, that needs to be reported that these resources are on the job site but idling, and that will mean that these resources will not be available when they are needed, and there will be a problem there. Okay. Then project progress and timeline creeps are something which one needs to take care of. So if your project is lagging behind, you are able to see your project dashboard and it is not going as per the timeline, then that needs to be addressed early. We have to galvanize meetings at a senior level, client, contractor, EPC, inspectors, other agencies, all those people start getting involved. And if they are involved early on, they are able to take the corrective action and solve this whole thing. Okay. Any other questions? Dr. Partha, you wanted to say something?
Sir, my voice is audible?
Yes, Miss Jana.
Sir, actually, I was having some question regarding that certification. For
Okay.
any particular project, suppose I want to certify that particular project. So, for that, what type of criteria is required? Means for any particular project, is there any particular specification for that thing? Or for every project, that certification criteria or rule is same?
So for every project, that certification criteria is very, very different.
Okay, okay.
So in case of a projects, there are times when you say that, you know what, daily work progress and daily resource need to be certified. Okay. In some other project, there are milestones defined that this milestone needs to be witnessed and certified by a X party. That can be an outside party, that can be an inside party. Okay. Then in some cases, like if you are building a boiler, the for a manufacturing plant, one of the condition is that boiler needs to be certified by the boiler certifying authorities, so as we can start the boiler when the plant starts, and that also can be a scope of a contractor. So in some cases the measurements need to be certified, in some cases the quantities need to be certified, in some cases the resource need to be certified, in some other cases all these need to be certified. And then that certification can be from a third party agency, from the client side people. In some cases, even a self certification by a contractor will work. Then in
Okay,
some
sir.
cases, you have to provide a documents to prove that you have supplied that. So these certifications vary from a project to project, and this is typically defined in the contract very, very clearly. In fact,
Sir,
construction,
during making that LOI, so I think every details of that particular thing will be given, isn't it?
many details are given, every details can't be given at all.
Okay, okay, sir.
I have seen contracts which are 1,000 pages long and still not able to cover everything. And I'm not kidding. 1,000 plus pages of a contract. I read the bloody whole thing in 1 week and realized that still there are areas which they have not covered. Okay. So contracts can be detailed, and honestly, contracts are not fun to read, but one has to learn to read contract if you want to be successful in any way in the business world. Any other questions?
Hello, sir. Dr.
Sir,
Parthasarathi Das.
Yeah.
I have one question. You are talking about time frame, timeline of some contract, but some
Yes.
external factor may interrupt. That's why we have faced the cases of COVID-19. So due to the contract, maybe if I sign a contract, I do not have that in my hand because suddenly some external factor like COVID-19 came and the contract may be delayed for 1 year.
You know,
So in
okay.
that case, what will happen?
So what happens is, first of all, in every contract, there is a clause called force majeure. Okay. And that force majeure clause is about covering these uncertainties. Let's say there is an earthquake. Let's say there is a global pandemic like a COVID. Let's say there is a supply chain disruption, or something as stupid as the Delhi borders are closed because farmers are sitting on the border and no material is able to come inside the city in timely manner. Right? Now, these are all force majeure, whereas the definition of a force majeure is that these are the things which are outside the control of the contractor and a client. And in these cases, the contract terms are no longer valid. Okay. Now, these force majeure terms are defined very, very clearly in the insurance industry. Okay. And from there, these definitions are taken. So contracts always have a clause for things which are outside the control of a human. I hope I have answered your question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
sir,
But these are good questions. Yeah. Tell me.
sir, myself, Professor Balaram Dev from Haldia Institute of Technology, Kolkata.
Yes,
Sir,
Professor.
sir, this is actually very individual based, sir, problem, sir, regarding this contract only. So it may not be of this domain. Still, sir, I am asking you, sir. Actually, sir, I took one flat in Kolkata region only, but in their brochure, it was written that carpet area will be somewhere 600 square feet.
Okay.
But in their brochure itself, the design specification of that particular flat was 560, 62 square feet. Now
Okay.
that was actually measured from their own dimension only.
Okay.
So as that application form cost, it was 1,25,000 rupees,
Okay.
and it belongs to that Indian reality. Now question is, sir, I actually, sir, anything, any problem, sir?
Professor.
Hello.
Yeah,
So
sorry to interrupt, Dr. Abdul Salam. Could you please mute yourself? Dr.
even,
Abdul Salam, could you please mute yourself?
sir, let me. Sir, so
Somebody from CIDC, can you mute Dr. Abdul Kalam?
this problem is actually we are facing every day, sir. Actually, nobody is
No,
taking care.
no. Somebody from CIDC should be taking care of it because
Nobody
they
is
have a
listening.
right to mute anybody.
Yes, sir, I
I
know
don't
that, but
have a
nobody
right.
is doing that. They are not doing that, sir.
No, no.
And
I will talk to the Director General and make sure that this is taken care from the next time in your classes.
sir, so let me now continue, sir.
No,
In
no,
that,
sir. Professor Balram, I'm
sir.
giving you my contact details on the chat here. Okay.
Okay, sir.
This is a very, very specific question, and it's not fair to take everybody's time into this.
Fine, sir.
You
Fine.
know,
Okay, sir.
yeah, and we can take it up on the side. I'm putting my contact details here, and you are, you know, you
Thank you,
are
sir. Thank you.
welcome to write it to me, and I will answer you. But the short answer of your case is that you can actually go to the consumer court, and consumer court will look at you very, very favorably, and under the RERA law, this is anyway a big violation, and you will be given the right credit there.
So, is there any time frame? Because
Within
that,
3 months is typically they are asking, but even if it is 1 year, it can be enforced.
but it is more than 3 years, sir.
If you have taken possession of the flat, then maybe yes, but if you just want a return of your brochure money, then no.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, please give me that phone number, sir. I will talk to you in afterwards, sir.
I just sent you an email. Please call me. Please send an email, and I'll respond back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone?
Sir, Dr. Parthasarthi Das, I want to ask one more question.
Yes.
And that what is the role of chartered engineer in India in signing this type of contract? Is there any extra role for the chartered engineers?
You know, chartered engineer clause in India are rare. Number one. Number two is, honestly, the chartered engineers are reduced to what I call managing or becoming a kind of valuation agents. You got my point, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So the chartered engineers typically in India are just involved in doing what you call costing and certification, not the not the real work of a chartered engineer. So unfortunately, in the scope of India, the chartered engineers have been reduced to something very, very small, and which is a tragedy. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right. Because we all need to know what is needed, and the chartered engineer's role in India is defined very, very narrowly. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions from anybody? Uh, I'm sorry, I got disconnected. Is my screen visible again, please?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, it is.
My audio is also clear, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good, good. So I will start again. Okay. So, how to prepare for a dispute resolution? Documenting a verbal agreement is very, very important. So the client tells you that, you know what, the site is not available, I'm sorry. That needs to be documented somewhere so as when the dispute comes, you are able to provide that proof that it is not there. Or the contractor has not mobilized the resource and you as a client want to give contractor a warning that, you need to connect with me. Sorry, you need to mobilize the resource. It is very, very important for you to ask for and put that in writing. Verbal contracts are one of the main reasons why people get into trouble. Okay. By the way, I have put my LinkedIn detail also in there in case anybody wants to connect or anybody wants to follow. You are happy to do that. You are welcome to do that. So, the verbal agreements, the non-conformities, the circumstances, early warnings, all these things need to be documented to ensure that in a dispute resolution, your company is the one who gets benefit rather than somebody else, the other party. And if the company you are working for gets the benefit, you yourself will get benefit directly or indirectly. And that's very, very important. So documenting all kind of a disputes is something which is required without any uh, exception. And this is again one area where young engineers are the one who are susceptible to do the more mistakes, and typically they learn it after doing a mistake and after causing a loss to the company as well as loss to their own reputation within the company. Is this clear to everybody? Then we'll come to a contract closure. The contract closure requires managing relationships, managing compliances, managing deviations, managing documentations. Now, what is managing deviations? No contract is done exactly as per the contract written. In every single contract, you have something or the other which is not done, which is either done extra or not done to the completion as per written in the contract. And those deviations need to be recorded. The compliance needs to be recorded. Even the industrial relation compliance needs to be recorded. The relationship needs to be managed. The documentation needs to be managed in terms of, is the work certified or not? Is the proper certification done or not? The third party inspection done or not? But that's not the complete closure of the contract. Complete closure of a contract also requires documenting the key learning for the organization on both sides of the frame. In case you have made some wasteful expenses in the contract, and if you document those wasteful expenses and share it within your organization, the other people learn from it and those wasteful expenses do not happen. Or you have been able to create a new efficiency in a contract and able to get the work done more efficiently. Once again, that needs to be documented as a key learning so as the future generations within your company can also get benefit out of that. Any questions here? Okay. So I had all this on a contract, and I'm sure that I have given enough knowledge for the people to now know and appreciate this subject. Is there any questions you want me to address?
Hello. Good
Yes, sir.
afternoon, sir. This is Rajesh Mukherjee from Hulda Institute of Technology. So,
Yes.
sir, my question is that if any verbal contract took place between two persons with the presence of some other third person, is it comes under the judicial system of India?
Every contract you make and sign is a civil contract as far as the Indian courts are concerned, and all these contracts can be enforced in the civil court.
It could be verbally also.
Yes, yes, yes. No, verbal contract, no. Verbal contract, although the IPC does define a verbal contract, but verbal contracts are very, very difficult to prove. So
Okay. No, sir,
contract has to be a written contract and preferably on a stamp paper to make it enforceable. Otherwise, the contract is a handshake contract and that doesn't get recorded anywhere.
okay, means that doesn't have any judicial value.
Again, as I said, there is a provision in the Indian Penal Code for the verbal contract, but those are very, very difficult to prove.
Okay,
And becomes
understood.
real tricky. Okay, make sense?
Yeah, understood.
Okay. Anything else?
Sir, I
Sir, I
have
am Dr.
one.
Parthasarathy Das from Holdi Institute of Technology.
Yes, Dr. Partha. Dr. Partha, can you please hold on for a minute? A lady was speaking. What do you have? What do you want to say, ma'am? Please, you finish it.
Sir,
Then Dr. Partha, I'll answer Dr. Partha also. Yeah.
yes, sir. Actually, I have one query. Suppose in a single project, two parties are working. Okay.
Yes.
So at that moment, suppose one party has completed its job clearly, but another party has done some mistake, and because of that the company which under which that contractor was working, suppose he is that company is not satisfied with that party. So suppose that another contractor he is working under that party, that means subcontractor. So here main contractor is doing certain problems, but the subcontractor who is working under that contractor, he is doing its job perfectly. So at that moment, because of the problem of main contractor, if subcontractor will not get its means whatever money or anything it has invested, how he that party can recover his money, means suppose that
Two things. I
subcontractor
got
also.
your point, sir. I got your point, ma'am. So
Yes,
basically, what you are saying is that there is a contract, and within that contract, the contractor has given a subcontract to a third party, and that third party has completed his job, but contractor was not able to complete the full scope of work. So
yes, yes,
contractor is now not paying the subcontractor, right?
Yes. So at that moment, what was the steps that a subcontractor can follow to solve that problem? Means as that subcontractor has invested his money and everything, and now that contractor is facing so many problems, because subcontractor means that that is not that much of established. So because of that, if some of the amount also that contractor has invested, so he is now facing the problem. So how that contractor can solve his problem? Sir, can you suggest something? That personally I'm asking you that question.
Okay. Okay. Very good point, ma'am. First of all, the subcontractor need to have his documents ready, the certification from a contractor ready with him, that he has completed the job he claims he has completed or she has completed. And this is the endemic problem, rather pandemic problem in the Indian contract industry, that the typical direct contractor, the big contractor is actually working on the government contracts or a big company contracts, so typically gets paid. If the do the job correctly, the subcontractor is the one who faces the burn, and many of the time they are not paid for the work they have done. They have a right to go and enforce their contract in the civil court, number one. But before that, the clients also entertain subcontractors' grievances. So I have seen cases where subcontractor has gone to the client and said that, you know what, I have done work on your project, but the contractor is not paying me. Clients have made the direct payment to the subcontractor by holding a payment of a main contractor, and that happens very, very routinely. So the first recourse is go to the client and see if you can enforce the contract. And then, of course, the second recourse is go to the Indian court. But going to the Indian court hardly solves any problem. Going to a client, I have seen problems being resolved. I hope I have answered your question, ma'am.
Yes, sir. If you provide your phone number and as well as email ID, it will be very much beneficial. If any problem means suggestion is required, then we can contact you, because that topic and the thing what today you are discussing, that is very much interesting, and as well as some of my friend actually doing that, facing that type of problem. So because of that, means as I got
So
the idea.
I have given you the email ID of mine, and I
Yes,
have
yes.
also given you my LinkedIn contact. So
Okay.
please be in touch with me on those forums. And I typically don't even pick up my phone if it is not
Okay,
coming
okay,
from
sir.
the number which is recorded in my phone. Okay.
Okay,
And
okay,
my
sir.
emails are monitored routinely. I hope I'll be able to answer those questions. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And Dr. Partha, you were saying something?
Suppose, sir, I'm saying that suppose a person A give a job to a person B,
Yes.
and B distribute that job to C, D, E, and F, but
Yes.
A do not know it. So, is it legally valid in India?
Okay, so it depends upon contract to contract. There are contracts which are specifically prohibiting the subcontracting. Okay, rarely, but there are contracts. If the contract is specifically prohibiting the subcontracting, then yes, it is illegal. But if contract is not specifically prohibiting the subcontracting, then it is legal. You can give, because contract is silent about the subcontracting. In fact, I have seen contracts where they say that, one subcontractor cannot have more than 10% of the value of a contract, or more than 50% of the value of a contract cannot be subcontracted, or everything can be subcontracted, or nothing can be subcontracted. So these are all terms of the contract, sir. Okay, Dr. Patha?
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anyone else who has a question? I think there are a lot of good questions on the contract and the subcontract here. And I think next time when I give a presentation, I'll try to ensure that I cover those areas as well in my presentation. But for today, is there anybody else who has any questions for me?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir, this question from the academic aspect. So if an academic institute perform a consultancy job and giving its service to certain companies,
Yes, sir.
and the consultancy job if comes under the R&D research and development wings, which are not
Yes.
regular consultancy jobs. So in that aspect, if institute or the person who is doing that goes under any contract, then what are the point that should be noted?
See, in any contract, okay, first of all, defining what is a deliverable is very, very important. Okay? And that deliverable can be, let's say, time of your research associate. You can say that, we will put 5 research associates on this project for 6 months each. And that's a deliverable. Or you can say that, at the end of this, we will produce a report covering these all topics. And that report will be the final deliverable under this contract. Okay. Or you can say that, this is a study we are doing and this is a scope of a study. And for this study, we will be using these all instruments. And for that, this much payment is required. Okay. So defining the scope of work is very, very important. And honestly, research institutes actually are sometimes taken for a ride because the corporates giving the contract are actually experienced in giving the contract, and research institutes do not have that expertise.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it is better to involve some of the senior professors or even some of the guys in your building, in your maintenance department. They know how to enforce a contract and they will be able to give you a good input.
No, my question is in general. If in general, and that is I understood what you have understood. Means the scope of deliverables should be exactly written.
Defined, yes.
Exactly defined. Yeah, I got the point.
Yeah. In fact, scope of deliverables, you should take it in your hand rather than giving it to the hands of the corporate, saying that, okay, fine, I understood your problem. I think this is a scope of deliverable you are talking, and for this scope, this is how much we are going to charge.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good. Any other questions? Any other questions? I think there are no more questions here. Okay. And anybody who reaches out to me can have the copy of my presentation, and you are welcome to write it to me to get the copy. Okay. If there are no more questions, I might want to end this session.
Sir, I think there is no question from anyone, sir. I would like to thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge and information. Could I close the session, sir, with your permission
Yes.
of you?
Yes, please, ma'am. And one more thing, ma'am, this has been a complaint from the participants. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes,
Please
sir.
have somebody from CIDC monitor these sessions.
Yes, sir.
And in case somebody is talking without knowing that his mic is on, you have the power to mute them, whereas nobody else has the admin power to mute them. And that kind of disrupts the session. And few people complained about it, that this is something which is happening routinely, and it happened in this session as well. So someone from CIDC should be monitoring this and putting people on the mute when they are talking and disturbing the session.
Okay, sir. We will take care, sir.
Yeah. Otherwise, thank you very much. This has been a really good organization, and I think we had a very, very fruitful discussion. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
Thank you.